Imagine growing up seeing the representation of the people from your state in mainstream media to be close to non existent. And if it does exist, it's some of the most offensive portrayals you may ever imagine. And finally, a creator does the bare minimum in doing the research and giving a state and its people basic respect through authenticity. You are bound to be overwhelmed and rave about the show. Paatal Lok was one of the most talked about shows that released during the pandemic in 2020. People had extremely polarizing views about it because of its unfiltered and ruthless writing. You had gruesome violence and shocking sequences of religious connotation as well that would even make those who love to watch disturbing stories look away and conclude that this is the embodiment of Paatal Lok. You literally had ministers talking about certain statements and sequences, and it all really became messy. Thankfully, not overshadowing the effective storytelling of the series. Since then, however, 5 years have passed and many wondered when the new season will come out, and we can finally see Jaideep Ahlawat play the iconic role of Hathi Ram Chaudhary again. The show was apparently shot 2 years ago, so I literally have no clue why it was in the back burner for so long. Sudeep Sharma, the executive producer of the show, is a special creator, being responsible for writing for movies like NH10, Lal Kaptan, and shows like Kohra. He returns as the executive producer for the second season of Paatal Lok, which I genuinely believe either a lot of people are not talking about or are discrediting it as being not as effective as its first season. I actually beg to differ. Season 2 of Paatal Lok focuses on Hathiram Chaudhary, who seems frustrated at the mediocre life he is living. A promotion in the police force seems to be highly unlikely, and what makes matters worse is that his junior Imran Ansari has gone up the ranks, become his senior, and is taking up high-profile cases. When it is found out that Jonathan Thom, the founder of Nagaland Democratic Forum, has been killed in the premises of a Nagaland summit taking place with the leaders in Delhi, the police investigates the case and it unravels a nexus of several players with their own ulterior motives while laying specific focus on the state of Nagaland, its tumultuous history, and how it has evolved politically, socially, and culturally in the context of modern India. Hathiram Chaudhary finds a way to be a part of the case, joining hands with Ansari as they travel to Nagaland to truly understand who may be responsible for the murder of such an influential figure of the state. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the series so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch it on Amazon Prime Video or not. The underwhelming aspects: proximity and unintentionally funny moments with extras. The only situation in this entire series where I felt it wasn't understated and pragmatic was the movement of a character that is oddly suspicious but is also taking place in broad daylight. There is a character played by Prashant Tamang called Daniel, and he holds great significance to the plot of the series and the case at hand. But I found it quite hilarious on how he was almost like openly roaming around the streets of Nagaland, but still largely going unnoticed. There is a point where a hospital is being guarded by the police, and the man is just strolling around and taking a photograph of the sensitive location, and no one in the police, even for a slight second, just get slightly alarmed or suspicious. There's one instance where a drug bust is taking place, and Jaideep has such a command over 10 people. You wonder that they could have easily overpowered him if they worked together. I guess there's something about Hathiram's sheer presence that makes goons also piss their pants. There is also one sequence in which Hathiram is roaming around a busy street as Nagaland is celebrating Christmas, and he is surrounded by extras who are of course just filling up the screen, and some of the acting of the extras really made me chuckle. Especially the case of this one couple that see a man holding a sniper and she almost screams out of cue, which is peak nitpicking, I know, but I often in scenes with large crowds tend to look at the extras in each corner and see who's screwing up by looking directly at the camera. That also happens sometimes in this series. The expectations that kill the experience. I think one of the main reasons why people have a sense of disappointment regarding season 2 is that the experience that they had while watching season 1 was so ingrained in their memory, and the expectations of season 2 was not to have its own identity, but be an extension of the same thing that they saw in season 1. The series is perfectly in sync and consistent with its characters, their behavior, and dynamics they share with those around them. However, because they are placed in a not so familiar space this time, and the series is not as gory, violent, or sexually explicit as season 1, I think people are slightly confused of what they feel about it. I actually found this story to be so interesting, as the makers are not tapping into what was popular with season 1 and doubling down on the same. They could have easily done that. In contrast, actually, they are choosing to tell us a very unique story based on a state that many are not familiar with, and an attempt to showcase the same story with authentic casting and the manner and language in which they interact with each other. Paatal Lok could have easily been an extension of the gore and violence in web series we have become desensitized to. But I generally feel like it successfully attempted to tell us a tale that can literally not be compared to any other Indian series. And that's what made this season so effective and engaging for me. The good: cinematography and set pieces. The change of setting from the dread and filth of Jamnapar to the narrow residential lanes and hills of Nagaland made this series so engaging visually as well. I know I say this too many times and it may really get annoying for all of you, but this is such a prime example of the effectiveness of movies and series when executed in real locations. As the series oscillates between Hathiram's apartment to the hilly terrain of Nagaland, you do feel like a passenger tagging along with him back and forth. You feel like outsiders visiting Nagaland for the first time, just like Hathiram, and the makers fully utilize the terrain of the state for so many of the engaging action and chase sequences. I was in awe of the frames in the forest when Jonathan Tom's funeral is taking place and the family drama is in full display in front of Ansari and Hathiram. There's this exceptionally crafted scene with Ishfaq trying to save the life of a girl who has a lookout notice against her. The camera pans outwards as the characters walk in these narrow streets and you could just see the vast landscape of Nagaland. I must especially commend someone like Jaideep Ahlawat, who has literally embodied the Haryanavi Jat walk and run. For those who have spent enough time in Delhi NCR, there's just a strut about it. You know, a population of hardened men who are just naturally fit, even if they have a slight pudge. Jaideep is literally climbing and jumping and running in so many sequences, you can clearly tell he has not even opted for a body double for some of the craziest hits he takes. What I love about the action also is that rather than perfectly choreographed sequences that we have become used to seeing in feature films, the action is so realistic in this series that you see Hathiram literally scrambling with goons. That's how real brawls eventually end up like. It's slightly messy, trying to hold on to anything and smash them with it. A pot, a pan, a fork, anything that you can grab a hold of. Kudos to Amrit Singh who has captured the action for this series. Jaideep really gave everything to this role, even physically. It's only in the hospital ambush sequence that the man transformed into becoming Hodor from Game of Thrones. Dynamic in relationships. I love the relationships and dynamics shared in this series. They have such a natural touch to them that you seem engaged even if it's just a passing, frivolous interaction. You look at the characters in the fringes, like Manju, played by Nikita Grover. You have an instant smile on your face whenever she's on the screen because she has the most random information to share with Hathiram. Or his right-hand man, Rishi Kolshrestha as Tokus, just a careful observer right next to Hathiram and the developments in the Thana. It's just random information, but it's so cool to see that dynamic. If you look at the core characters, you look at Ansari and Hathiram together. It's such a beautiful dynamic. Despite being polar opposites in personalities, they have a mutual admiration for each other, something that stays there despite their hierarchical setup professionally. There is such a beautiful scene shared between the two men when Hathiram becomes vulnerable and tells him that he may not understand many things because of the way he is raised as a conservative Haryanvi man, but he connects to Ansari on a human level, exceptionally acted by Jaideep Ahlawat. You look at the banter with someone like SHO Virk, played by Anurag Arora, and they just hate each other's guts. They essentially are swearing at each other most of the time, but they acknowledge each other's strengths as police officers. The lack of respect in regards to Gulpanag as Hathiram's wife, constantly concerned about their monetary state and the unpredictable nature of his profession that gives her anxiety. What I love about this dynamic and marriage is that despite the bickering, there is almost an unsaid goal of them being a team together and never letting go of each other. Or let's talk about someone as irritating as Hathiram's brother-in-law, who will not let go of mentioning to everyone that he's bought an AC car, something that just gets on Hathiram's nerves. It all accounts for some brilliant relationships that have stayed consistent and true to the characters like in season 1, and it was lovely to see them in this world again. Political and social authenticity. Imagine that just a few days ago we were talking about how India is booming with talent. It's just the lack of opportunity and visibility that makes us not notice them. But if we tried just a little more beyond our Instagram algorithms, we would see how there's literally no shortage of acting gems across state borders. You just look at the cast of this series and the portrayal of Nagaland and its people, it's all a reflection of the makers doing their due diligence and homework. This is a state that was marred with violence ever since India's independence in 1947, a state that has had several conflicts with state authorities regarding its identity and position as a part of India. The existence of rebel groups and the disenfranchised nature of their existence has resulted in a torrid history, but also of a state that is resilient and proud in its pursuit of basic respect. And I think the makers have done a fair job in at least coming close to an authentic portrayal of the same. I would love to hear, especially if there are subscribers from Nagaland, to give me their 2 cents of what they felt about the portrayal in this series, of both its people and the circumstances one deals with within the state. I must commend especially the casting. Other than Tilotama Shome, who is Bengali, she does a commendable job speaking in Nagamese, by the way. Other than her, the actors that include the likes of, and I'm going to totally butcher these names, so bear with me, I loved Janu Barua as Uncle Ken, Elsie Sekhose as Ruben, Roselle Mero as Ruben's mother, Mengu Swokri as Esther. It just made me so proud that Hindi cinema thought of this idea to focus on such a state and its people, and more importantly, believed in casting appropriately. Just look at the performances of the ensemble cast of this series and you'll realize how we have barely scratched the surface in truly exploring the talent available across states in this country. Jaideep Ahlawat. This man, however, as Hathiram Chaudhary, is a force to be reckoned with. A hard man set in his ways but having such clarity regarding his morals and ethics. A man who is stubborn in his ways, especially his pursuit for the truth, and while this can be frustrating for many around him, it is always in the pursuit of what is right. In many instances, you see Jaideep's eyes well up in this season as he has reached a breaking point with the red tape, corruption and sheer incompetence showed by people around him. And you can't help but feel the exhaustion wearing on his shoulders. His tactics to get answers from those associated with the crime is still one of my favorite things to see. There's just something about Jaideep swearing and Thet Haryanavi that is just music to my ears. It's a skill that is really overlooked, I must say. But on a more serious note, this is an actor Indian cinema should be proud of and should understand that from the point of view of commercial cinema, he genuinely deserves so many more opportunities. The conviction with which he can do a Hathiram Chaudhary and at the same time a Pradeep from Three of Us with the same conviction is just a testament to the sheer range he possesses. I personally was thoroughly invested in season 2 of Paatal Lok, a series that I believe is getting slightly shortchanged because of its comparisons to the gore and shock value that was provided to us by season 1. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Paatal Lok season 2. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle is right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.